Today I want to give you a clear picture of where the city is and where we need to go. What you'll see today is what's working, where we're under pressure, what that means for services, and what it means for the future. Before that, I want to ground this in how I think about the iPhone 15, about city government. I believe residents should expect transparency about results and challenges, clear, accountable outcomes, fiscal stewardship, meaning cost-effective and sustainable, and strong processes that consistently deliver results. That's the lens I use for everything I'm about to show. Starting April, yeah, okay. Starting April 1st, we've gone through a significant transition in public safety. The shared policing contract with North Bend ended and we're transitioned now to serving Snoqualmie. But our policing partnership with North Bend will stay strong. We're also investing in tools like school zone safety cameras, moving toward a permanent police chief, and we'll continue focusing on strong outcomes. In my first 3.5 months as a new mayor, I spent a lot of time listening and learning. I've had monthly coffee meetings, coffee with the mayor meetings, numerous community events. We've had our first town hall seeking resident input for many years. I've had meetings with staff at individual departments, individual shifts, to hear their concerns and what their issues are. I've attended monthly merchant meetings both downtown and on the Ridge, and visited many of you in your businesses. I've attended chamber events, met with Kelly Coughlin many times to hear issues and talk about solutions. I've met with the tribe, county representatives, and state electeds and their staff. Many of those conversations have included the proposed BEST project, and I've spent time focusing on those concerns. Strong involvement in relationships is how we're going to get things done, and it's already paying off. So while the December flood event was before I took office, it tested our systems. City staff worked around the clock, and the response was strong. To ensure we're engaged with our residents, we've held a town hall to gather their input as we debriefed our performance. The debrief highlighted areas to improve, and those improvements are already being implemented. So Snoqualmie is a strong city. We have strong visible services, dedicated staff, many of whom are in the audience today. They're spread all over the room. Solid infrastructure, and ongoing capital investment to keep that infrastructure strong. And we have a widely shared view of what is special and important about Snoqualmie. But at the same time, we're facing real pressure. Revenue has not been keeping pace. As a result, we've reduced staffing levels. We have much more limited capacity than we had just a few years ago, while needs are only getting more complex and expectations have not been lowered. So that combination is the challenge we're facing, and that's what I want to talk through today. From the outside, the system looks like it's working. Strong visible services, as I said, projects are moving forward. In fact, major capital investments are being delivered this year, $16 million worth planned for this year. Core operations continue, but with strain in key areas. And that strain is building, even if it's not always visible. So this is the splash pad that opened, it was just this past summer, June of 2025. It's a great example of an investment that families see and use every day. And it's a great tourist draw that supports our local retail businesses. This is the Riverwalk project that you've all seen happening over this past winter down along Railroad Avenue. I think that perhaps a lot of the newer residents to Snoqualmie didn't even realize the river was that close. So opening up those views is fantastic just for driving down the street. But we've also built a soft trail there for walking and biking. That'll be a great feature for residents, but it's also going to be a regional draw for tourists. And then we continued investing in the foundations of the city. This is a view of the Water Reclamation Facility Phase 3 project. Now, this is not the facility that you saw being constructed as you drove in today. That's a different thing. This is across the river down in the valley. This is a significant investment to keep that reclamation facility up to date and functioning. So then we have the Kimball Creek lift station improvements that have been going on. So these aren't visible day to day, but they're critical infrastructure that supports the whole system. And just for a minute, realize that over the last decade and a half, we pulled numbers for the last decade and a half, it's really the last couple decades. Snoqualmie's been able to put an enormous investment into the downtown area. So as a new city, most of the ridge didn't require the annual reinvestment that you need to repave streets, fill potholes, all the things that once you've sort of been around for a while, like now, that you have to invest in. So we were able to refocus those dollars, or focus those dollars on really bringing the downtown area up to similar standards. So strengthening the downtown business district, bringing infrastructure standards to downtown, similar to the Ridge, and really delivering on one of the reasons the whole Ridge was developed in the first place. As I said, it adds up to about 40 million. You can see some of the different areas that spending was. These are the kind of investments that make it feel like things are working, and they are. So we think about investing in our community. We spend about $2 million a year in the annual, what we call the annual renewal programs. These are things that we have to spend, invest in, and spend on every single year. Repaving streets, filling potholes, maintaining bridges, taking care of sidewalks that need to be replaced in portions, renewing parks and open spaces, and then the facilities, the city facilities that are used to deliver all the services from. And then we have projects that are approved for the next 5 years are over $55 million in projects. Some of the big ones coming this year are Sandy Cove Park stabilization. That's a big project to try and stop Sandy Cove Park from being further eroded as the park, we lose parts of the park every year. So this is stabilizing the riverfront so that our park doesn't disappear on us. Additional Riverwalk sections, and then a whole bunch of work on what's called Town Center Phase 3. That's the area between downtown and the Parkway. And then there's a big chunk of money slated to be spent on renewing the community center, including adding aquatics, although I think that project's going to go through a big relook next year. So how do we fund all that? So we have some unique sources of funding. The capital funds are all sourced out of funding that has to be spent by state law on capital projects or transportation projects. So those are the Transportation Benefit District sales tax. That's a portion of the sales tax that you pay on everything you buy. Gas tax on gas sales within the city. The real estate excise tax that's levied on homes and properties that's sold. And then we try to leverage all of that money into much bigger projects by using it as matching money for larger grants. So applying for grants to do some of the big projects that we want to do. You heard Mayor Miller talk about some of the big projects that they've got coming forward in North Bend and how those are grant funded, many of them. So that's a way to leverage our money into much bigger projects. So then services, that's all the operating costs. That comes from different sources. So in Snoqualmie, primarily that's property tax, then it's also sales and B&O tax, the utility tax, and then fees for all the things that you have to pay fees to the city for, whether it's using parks or permits and so forth. And then we do get some grants and other revenue as well. To give you a sense of kind of the size, we tried to draw some round circles that are in relative size to give you a sense of where that comes from. So on the capital side, as I mentioned, we're bringing about $5 million, a little over $5 million a year on the capital side. And you heard me say that about $2 million of that each year has to go just to renewal projects. So we have about $3 million a year that we can set aside and build up to do different projects. On the operating side, as you see, the big source, almost 50% of our revenue, is property tax. So that's a decision that Snoqualmie made long ago. We don't have big mall like North Bend or drive-through. We don't allow drive-through. The exceptions, we don't allow drive-through restaurants in Snoqualmie. We don't have big box retailers like they do in Issaquah. So the result of that is we're very reliant on property taxes. So you see it's about 8.7 million out of our 19 million or so that we bring in. Second biggest is sales and B&O tax, then utility tax, and then fees, as I said, grants and other revenue. So we can kind of think about that fees grant section as being the non-tax portion, and the other three are the tax portion of that. So a total about 19 million a year that we bring in to fund our general fund or operations. So where's the pressure? On those operating costs, about 70% of it, all the costs that we incur at the city are for people, wages, benefits, and so forth. Or for service contracts, we just have people under them, so it's the same inflation drivers that drives those costs. And those costs are increasing over time with inflation. So on the operating revenue side, we've got that bucket of general fund taxes, and then those fees and other revenue. So the key question is, has revenue kept up? Here's a chart of our general fund tax revenue adjusted for inflation. So what that tells us is each year goes by, if we collected the same amount of revenue, the purchasing power of that revenue goes down. So this is just stating all of our revenue back to 2017, stating it in 2025 dollars. And so in real terms then, we call that in real terms we're operating today with significantly less revenue than just a few years ago. In fact, down 14% since 2020. You see a small bump there in 2025. That's a small voter-approved public safety sales tax addition that voters approved. So we're about 15.6 million in 2025. But you can see the city has substantially less revenue in real terms to support services than it did just several years ago. If you kind of think about it from the perspective of a dollar bill, for every dollar in property tax that's collected, in 2020 you see how much went to the different pieces, and then you see at the bottom what that looks like in 2026. So if you look at the far left, the Snoqualmie Valley School District, for example, is largely keeping up. Same with the other categories. But the city of Snoqualmie has not kept up. We've gone from about 20 cents out of every dollar in 2020 down to about 17 cents out of every dollar now. That's down about 14%. So thinking about general fund tax revenue, when we adjust for inflation, that total revenue has declined from about 18 million down to about 15.6 million. That's primarily from property tax, our largest revenue source, that's declined in real terms, inflation adjusted. That means less funding available to support services. So where does that gap show up? In response to declining revenues, the city reduced spending, including staffing and services, and the result is what you see. Less funding, more demand, fewer people. And we're now seeing the impact of that in our ability to deliver services that residents expect. So the system's still working. You see at the top, public safety, parks and public works. Most of those are steady in delivery. In fact, you see a slight head count in public safety. That's because we added a few firefighters. We were running an enormous amount of overtime. It has to do with how much time you can schedule each firefighter for. We had a lot of mandatory overtime. So we added a few firefighters. You pay for that with lower overtime. So while it looks like a bigger head count, it doesn't equate to more people on duty or on shift. It just relates to how we're paying for them. Is it regular wages or overtime? But you see we reduced capacity in community and economic development. We went from 9 people down to 5. And then our whole operational support categories went from about 22 people down to 16. Less funding, fewer staff, but no less demand. And in my view, we reduced more capacity than we should have. So, everyday services, And then the less visible surfaces. The things you see every day, parks are maintained, streets are repaired, the emergency response is still there, and the utilities are operating fantastic. But then there's things that you only see when you need them. The community planning function. Going out and seeking grants, staff that spend their time writing those grant proposals evidently till midnight to try and bring in that leverage money. Human services coordination. So in small cities like ours, we don't provide human services directly. We contract out, so we give grants to the many fantastic human services providers that we have here in the Valley. But coordinating that is a position that we actually cut. So as an example, this year, the food bank demand went up over 20%. We only gave a small increase. We're just not tuned into that as a city or monitoring that. Financial analysis, all the work to really focus on where we can get better leverage out of our people, where we can leverage the spending that we have, where we can be more efficient in how we're spending dollars. We've really cut most of that capability. And then how we support local businesses and economic vitality. We don't currently have an economic development coordinator. We do have a fantastic events and community outreach person, but that's still a fairly cut back capability from what we had just a few years ago. So there's things we're just not doing as well today. Like I said, economic development, human services coordination, planning capacity, and including responding to complex issues when they arise. These aren't theoretical, they show up in how will we support the community. So this gap reflects exactly what I'm talking about. We don't have the capacity to track those changes and respond as effectively as we should. Just to make that a little more concrete, see, the rest of them was a little slower to react. This is the North Bend table. So this is a great community and economic development team. This is a director, a manager, and 2 planners. But that's the North Bend team. This is our Snoqualmie team when I took office 3 months ago. We got Mona Davis in the back, and we've got Nicole in the front. So, so they're fantastic people, but there's a bit of difference in quantity. And this isn't about comparing ourselves to others. It's about understanding what it takes to deliver the level of service and the coordination that we expect. So what does that mean for the community? It means we're less proactive than we want to be. We're more often reacting than planning ahead. It means slower response to emerging issues, simply because we don't have the same capacity. And it means we're not able to support local businesses and community needs as consistently as we should. The basics are still getting done, but with less ability to get ahead of problems. One of the clearest examples of what we're not fully able to support today is how we approach economic development, including tourism. Tourism is one area where we can grow revenue while also supporting our local businesses and quality of life for residents. And the key thing is thinking like a valley. Visitors don't experience this as separate cities. They experience it as one place. A visitor might start at Snoqualmie Falls, explore downtown Snoqualmie, hike near Mount Si, and finish the day at a local restaurant. That experience crosses city boundaries. But for the visitor, it feels like a single destination. And when we coordinate that experience, when people stay longer and visit more places, local spending increases. And I know I sound like Kelly, she says it virtually every meeting, but it's very true. That's how we grow revenue and strengthen local business. So how can Snoqualmie help strengthen the valley? A whole series of things here: removing barriers, parking and access, cell service and Wi-Fi improvements. As you know, it's in downtown Snoqualmie fairly hard to get cell service, and we don't have Wi-Fi there. Stay tuned. Supporting local businesses, targeted attractions, support for existing businesses, but also supporting tourism-focused growth. helping to connect the experience, multi-stop itineraries, joint events and promotions, wayfinding between destinations across the valley, and then really promoting the valley. So regional branding, digital itineraries and events, and seasonal campaigns. So if we step back from all of this, where does that point to? Rebuild planning and development capacity, strengthen business and economic vitality, improve human services coordination, and strengthen communication and financial decision making. And if we get this right, here's what that looks like for residents. More consistent services, stronger local economy, better regional coordination, and visible investments. Looking ahead, costs continue to rise faster than revenues, which means the services gap widens. This is the trajectory, but it's not inevitable. I'm optimistic. We have a community that values strong city services and supports investing in them. We have a strong foundation, visible services being delivered, a capable city team ready to rebuild capacity, and clear opportunities to strengthen our economy and regional coordination. Snoqualmie has long been one of the most fiscally responsible cities you'll find, making decisions that have kept services strong and investments sustainable. In recent years, we didn't keep pace with inflation, and that's what you've seen in the numbers today. But this isn't about doing something new. It's about getting back to what we've always done well. We're not in a position where we're choosing from bad options. We still have real choices. And those choices allow us to align our spending with what matters most: public safety, economic vitality, and long-term financial sustainability. Strong fiscal health doesn't happen by accident. It comes from long-term thinking and making decisions today that protect the future. And we have a clear path forward. Thank you. Thank you for all the residents in Snoqualmie that make this such a wonderful place to be, all the businesses that have chosen to make this where you run your business and make it such a wonderful place to experience. To a wonderful staff that we've got here at the city, to the very supportive Snoqualmie City Council, and to all the community partners. Thank you.